Hi guys, welcome to Kelly Martin Books. My name is Kelly. I'm a traditionally and independently published author, and today we're going to talk about what you voted on in last week's poll. You wanted to know all about my favorite horror tropes. Now, on Tuesday, I do the video that you guys vote for, so the video or the choices for next week's video will be in the description of this one, so be sure to comment and tell me what video you would like to see next week. Also, while you're down there, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload videos every Tuesday and Thursday. I decided to pick 13 tropes of horror. This is supernatural horror. Horror is broke down in 4 general areas. There's killer, there's monster, there's paranormal, and there's psychological. I'm going to be focusing on the paranormal horror because that is one of my absolute favorite areas. So I've decided to break down this video into 3 different sections. The horror tropes that I love, the horror tropes that are just meh, and then the one horror trope that I absolutely do not like. That's not saying you can't like it. That's not saying it's not done well in some genres or in some movies or in some media. I'm just saying that you'll see what it is later. Alright, first we're going to start with the horror tropes that I love. I don't think this is any surprise to anybody, but my very first favorite horror trope is abandoned houses or houses with a history. This is like in The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. I love when there's abandoned houses and you drive by them and you're like, I wonder what happened in that house. I love taking abandoned house pictures. If you go to my Instagram, Kelly Martin Author, you see that I take a lot of abandoned house pictures or pictures of abandoned houses and put them up there. I just love the history of it. I love the architecture of it. I love the stories. I want to know why people left, because in a lot of abandoned houses, their curtains are still up, and I want to know why. My second horror trope that I love is human monsters. People assume since I write horror books that I dream about ghosts or vampires or whatever. I don't. I dream about human monsters. I think humans are way scarier than any monster could ever be. That got kind of real for a minute, didn't it? An example of this is Tate from American Horror Story. If you've seen season 1 of American Horror Story, you know his story. Tate is a very compelling character with a very horrible story, and he's human. So, yeah. My third favorite horror trope is the ending. I did this in Trinity Row, where you think the book is ended and then you have one little snippet at the end to be like, maybe it didn't end. And I especially think that's great in horror because the horror can keep going. That Trinity Row does that. I don't know if it works so well in Nightmare on Elm Street, but they do it. Friday the 13th built a whole franchise on the very last shot of Jason coming out of the water to kill the girl because, originally he was not the killer. And I know you know that. But they spent the whole... If they hadn't done that or is it ended, there would not be 50 Friday the 13th. I don't know if that's good or bad. My next favorite horror trope is the jump scare. If I knew how to edit, I would put a jump scare in here, but I'm not that great of an editor, so you're welcome. My favorite jump scares are actually in Five Nights at Freddy's, the video game. If you've ever played Five Nights at Freddy's, all it is, it's a very simple game. You have, you're a security guard. And the animatronics in like this Chuck E. Cheese-ish place come to life. And they will attack you from this way. They will attack you from this way. You only have so much power. And they pop up at you really, really quickly. I picked Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a video game, because I think that shows jump scares really well. You can do it in books. I try to do it in books. You can do it in movies. Of course, movies have them. But I think Five Nights at Freddy's just immerses you so much because you're looking at security cameras, you're actively looking, you're trying to figure out what you're doing, and then something pops up in your face and you literally nearly fall out of your chair. My next horror trope that I love might be a little bit of a surprise because I have gone on record saying that I hate mirrors. I use mirrors, obviously. I will look in mirrors. I don't like them. And I might make a whole video about why I don't like mirrors. Anyway, it's probably not interesting to anybody but me. Anyway, there's this episode of Twin Peaks that really encompasses this whole mirror thing. And I remember when I was little, I've never seen Twin Peaks, but when I was little, there was a commercial for it. And there was this girl in this really pretty purple shirt. And I love purple. It's one of my favorite colors. So, when she was standing in front of a mirror and she was like reaching toward the mirror, and then the reflection in the mirror like reached out and grabbed her, and it scared the daylights out of me. I think that was my very first jump scare, and I've not liked mirrors ever since. But they're one of my favorite horror tropes. My next horror trope that I love is called the kids know. When kids know things that the parents don't know. And this is kind of a real life example. When my oldest was a baby, she was probably a little over 1. She would sit in my lap when we'd be sitting on the couch, and I'd kind of be bouncing her like how you do babies. And she would like to look over my head and she would say, I know, I know. Favorite. My last horror trope that I absolutely love is the vengeful spirit and or ghost trope, especially if it's in a gothic or southern gothic setting like Woman in Black, which we've already talked about, The Haunted by Daniel Vega, or Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendar Blake. I love, or any Trinity Row does that too. I love ghost stories. I don't know why I love ghost stories. I guess I could sit down and like dissect it why I like ghost stories. But I do. I like ghost stories. Maybe because I like history. I don't know. And they go really well with abandoned houses. Those are the tropes that I absolutely love in horror. They can be done really well. They cannot be done really well. I'm not saying that I'm going to pick up a book just because it has it and love the book just because it has it. But I'll definitely give it a peek. Now we're going to go to the tropes that I'm mad about. But that's not saying that I don't enjoy these books or these tropes in moderation. And you'll see what I mean in a second. The very first trope that I'm kind of mad about, you might be surprised with because it's actually the final girl. And the final girl trope is in any slasher film. Any slasher film, basically. Most 90% of slasher films have the final girl. The reason I don't like this is not that I'm anti-final girl. To me, the fun part of horror is to not know how it's going to end. You don't know who's going to survive. You don't know if anybody's going to survive, especially if you're reading and getting books. And I've talked about that before, why I write my horror books in first person, because as the narrator, to me, if a narrator writes in past tense, you know they've lived. If they write in present tense, you don't know if they've lived to the end. That's just how I think. So, my thing about the final girl is that you know that she's going to make it. But, if a book or a movie or a TV show or whatever flips the script around, then I'm okay with it. It just I'm not anti-final girl. I just want it to be less obvious. I want there to be an element of suspense as if she's going to live. My next, should have thought of a better word for that, horror trope is imaginary friends. We've all seen it. There is a child, they have an imaginary friend. The imaginary friend turns out to be a ghost or a demon or something terrible, and it's terrible. The one place, it's not that I don't like it, but I think it's used too often. I think it's kind of a crutch sometimes. I don't hate the trope by any means. There's only one that I really, But the one place that I think did really well with this is Playthings from Supernatural. It was like in season 2. They did a cool twist on the imaginary friend trope, the imaginary friend story. I thought it was a really cool twist. So if you can put a twist on any of these, yeah, I'll read it, or I'll watch it, or I'll play the game. But yeah, imaginary friends. Put a cool spin on it. The next trope I want to talk about is parents who don't believe. Maybe it's because I'm a parent, and maybe it's because I believe in ghosts, but it really bothers me when you're reading or you're consuming horror. It sounds weird. When you're consuming horror media and you have a parent, and it's okay not to believe at first. I get it. But when you see like cups flying through the air, or I don't know, your kid levitating off their bed, maybe start believing. Maybe. I just think it slows the story down, and I think it gives an unnecessary beat or an unnecessary problem in the story when I don't think there probably should be. Now, what would be interesting is if one parent believed and one parent didn't, and then that would be a dynamic. But when both parents are like, no, that's when I think it can get a little messy. The next horror trope I want to talk about is splitting up or investigating a noise. We have all seen Scooby-Doo, and when you see Scooby-Doo, they split up. I actually watched A Heist with Markiplier last night, and it's not a scary thing. It has horror elements in it, but it's a choose your own adventure video, and there's like 3 things where they want you to split up, and then you split up, and you don't last very long, let's just say. So I don't like splitting up, and I understand it from a writer's standpoint because you need different dynamics, you need different scenes. It's difficult to write scenes when there's like 5 people together, so you want to separate them. I get it, but from a human standpoint, stay together. The last horror trope that I'm kind of meh about is cell phone service. And maybe I'm more angry about this than mad about it. But I live, obviously, in the South. You might have this issue with North and West, too. I'm not sure. I'm sure you do. Actually, I'm sure you do. But I can just talk about my neck of the woods. My mama lives behind a hill, which I realize is probably the most southern thing I've ever said on this channel. My mama lives down yonder behind the hill. And in her house, there's only, if you sit on the couch and lean, you get cell phone service. If you sit, if you're standing in the kitchen and you like turn a certain way, you can get cell phone service. Across the road from her house is a school. If you go up in the bleachers, there's one part of the, if you sit in the middle of the bleachers, you get cell phone service. If you sit at the edge of the bleachers, you don't get cell phone service. I'm telling you all this for this reason. Think about the Vampire Diaries. Just think about it. They're in the woods constantly. And they always have cell phone service. That has always bothered me about the Vampire Diaries. It's not the vampires. It's not the werewolves. I can believe in all that. But reliable cell phone service in the woods? No. I would rather have it more believable, because I know a lot of people are irritated when cell phones go out and it like makes the characters more vulnerable. I would rather that happen in a realistic situation, like if they happen to be in the woods or in the backwoods, than them just miraculously have cell phone service. I have went on a rant. I'm sorry. That bothers me. And my least favorite, you've been waiting for this, my least favorite horror trope that it's very, very difficult for me to pick up a book on this subject or watch a movie on this subject willingly. I have to be talked into it. If it's a book on this specific trope, I have to hear great reviews of it. It's not something like my love list. I will snatch them off the shelf and look at the back cover, and like they're pretty much my auto buys. My meh, I'm interested in them. I might pick them up. I might not pick them up. It depends. You know, I talked about that. It depends on if it's done in a new way or if I'm interested in it. This trope, my no trope, it has to be, I don't know, maybe a 1 in 100 chance. And it's not that I don't think it can be done well. I do believe it can be done well. And it's not me saying if you love this trope, then I think you're wrong. You can love this. I know people who absolutely love this type of book and movie, and that's okay. I'm glad that you do. I love paranormal horror. Some people hate paranormal horror. I don't like body horror. Some people love body horror. It's fine. We cannot like the same things and it be okay. But am I stalling? Probably. My least favorite paranormal trope is possessions. I don't have an explanation for it. I really don't. It like The Exorcist would be a great example of it. It's just not my favorite, which is kind of funny because I do write about demons, but my demons are like redeemable demons, which I guess is weird and probably contradictory. I'm not sure. But it's just something about demon possession that just... It's not my favorite. It's just not my favorite. It can be done well. Some people, like The Exorcist, is on, like people who don't even watch horror, it's on like their top 100 movies of all time. And that's great. If you love it, go for it. I'm just, if you know of a possession book that you absolutely think I will love, put it in the comments. I'll pick one. I will read it, and I will film a vlog about it. That is your homework. So, that's it. That's 13 horror tropes. What do you think? Which ones do you love? Do you agree with my love list, my meh list, my no list? Tell me in the comments, what horror tropes do you like? Which area of horror do you like? Are you more into the killer thriller side of horror, or in the monsters? Do you love vampires and zombies? I do love vampires. Not a fan of zombies. That's a whole nother story. Do you like paranormal like me? Do you like psychological? I like psychological too. I love psychological movies with horror. Anyway, let me know in the comments and we will definitely chat about it. Alright, remember I make videos every Tuesday and Thursday. The Tuesday's video is a video that you vote on the topic in the comments. We have 3 sections like always. Here we go. Number 1, would you like a real life discussion about my haunted house? Number 2, would you like a breakdown on the areas of the horror genre? Number 3, would you like a writing update from me because things may be happening? Or number 4, we're going to have a bonus this week. Number 4, would you like to see a video on my issues with mirrors? Let me know in the comments, and the top vote getter will be next Tuesday's video. On Thursday of this week, I'm going to film a video on BookBub. BookBub is a website that's kind of like Goodreads, but not, I know authors know about it a lot. I don't know if readers know all of the functions it has. BookBub sends out a newsletter with free and reduced books every day, and if an author gets a BookBub ad, it boosts their sales generally. And I actually have a BookBub ad coming up July 28th. I'm so excited about it. So I wanted to do a video where I show you the ins and outs and the tricks of BookBub, because if you're not on BookBub and you're a reader or a writer, you definitely need to join. Alright guys, I hope you liked the video. Give it a like if you did. I'm not going to say give it a dislike if you didn't, but you can. I will see you in the comments, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.